Okay, so we're going to look at how you're going to do a couple of exercises that are going to help you be prepared for your exam that will help me assess whether or not you are meeting this learning target. The good news is what I'm about to show you is exactly the types of exercises that you're going to do in a collaborative way and then independently, and it's also exactly the same structure as the exam. So pay close attention to how I do this, and you should be in good shape. So this is the teacher guided practice document, which you don't have. Actually, I will attach a copy of this so you can see how it looks when it's all done, but I'm going to do just a couple of these words with you so you can see the process. And this is putting into practice everything that I went over in the first video and that was in the additional video attached. All of these skills for looking for context clues and internal clues. So let's just read the directions first. It's always a good place to start. It says, for each word from the text, write the context clues, which are other words and phrases from the text, or the internal clues, which are prefixes, roots, or suffixes already familiar to you, that help you to determine the meaning of the word under the context clues, internal clues heading. What does that sentence mean? Well, that means this heading right here is where you are going to put any type of clues from the text that surround the word over here that help clue you into what the meaning is, okay? And as you might have guessed, this over here is where you're going to put the definition. So it says, then under your definition, provide what you feel the definition of the word is based on these clues in your own words. Okay? So you're going to come up with what you would say is the definition of it based on all of the clues that you can find in the text around that word. Finally, I want to draw your attention to this last part of the directions. You can see I put in all caps to begin with, and the rest of it is in italics. So that means please pay attention to me. It says, do not look the words up. I know that you're working on computers. I know that you're used to Googling things, which is a pretty good habit overall. But in this case, it says, do not look the words up. You will not be able to do this during your assessment, which will be on paper. So practice inferring the definitions yourself now. Okay, so you need to come up with your own definitions, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Remind me tomorrow, computer. Okay, so let's look at the text that goes with this. And when you do these exercises, you will have a text just like this, and you will have that table, and they'll be in separate documents. So this little reading passage is called Psychology of Survival. I'm just going to do the first paragraph with you. If you can hear that terribly annoying sound, that's my dog pawing at the back door, wondering why he's not in here with me. So my apologies. You might hear baby cry in a moment. That's a possibility too. Okay, back to the reading. Psychology of Survival. It says you read about the survivors of an earthquake. I'm just in the first sentence here. You hear about a teenager lost in the woods. You can't help but think, what would you do in a similar crisis? You can't know how you'll act if you haven't experienced such a situation yourself. You know you're not supposed to panic, and you might want to be imperturbable, but when you're in a real emergency, your feelings just might overrule your ability to reason. Okay, so we have our first word here. It's imperturbable. It's bolded and underlined, and it's the first word in your table on this document. So let's try to figure out, based on the context, what sort of definition we could come up with for this word. First of all, it's a mouthful, and you may or may not be familiar with it at all, but it is pronounced imperturbable. Don't say it 10 times fast. You'll probably stumble. So it says you're not supposed to panic, and you might want to be imperturbable, okay? But, so I want to draw your attention to this word, but. So when we see this word, it signals that we're going to see on the other side of it, perhaps something that's in contrast to the word in front of it. So you want to be imperturbable, but when you're in a real emergency, your feelings just might overrule your ability to reason. So this part right here, your feelings just might overrule your ability to reason. I'm going to say that that might have to do with the opposite meaning, or it might be an antonym meaning for imperturbable, an ability to reason. So if you're imperturbable, you have the ability to reason. So I'm going to grab this whole second part of the sentence by holding down the Control key and hitting C. That copies it. Oops, I did it too slowly. Control C, and then I'm going to come over here, and that is a context clue right there. I'm just going to hit Control V, and it's going to paste it there. And if I want to be fancy, I might even underline the part that's really standing out to me. So the word but was important. Not B-U-T-T, but B-U-T, because it tells me that something is in contrast or might be an antonym to imperturbable. And then ability to reason, I underline because that's very important too. Okay. So here's another part. And this may or may not apply to you, and that's okay. But I happen to know that perturb is the root. If somebody is very perturbed, then it means that they're bothered, or they're shook. Okay, let's say that. So I'm going to say that that is an internal clue because it is the root of the word. And I'm going to say it means shook. Okay. I also know that M, this is the prefix. Is a prefix, and it means opposite of, basically, in a way. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Think about the word impossible. It means the opposite of possible, right? So if perturb means shook, and M means the opposite of shook. So if you are imperturbable, you have an ability to reason, and you're unshakable. In fact, I think that's going to be my definition. So I'm not going to make it long and complicated. I think the best, most succinct definition for imperturbable based on all these clues is unshakable. It's a synonym, and sometimes one-word synonyms make good definitions. So that's how you're going to do this. So I'm going to stop at that example, but you can see that this passage continues, and there are 10 more words to do the very same thing with. Now it'll go faster for you, potentially, because you're not talking out loud through and demonstrating. But I want you to take a look at these examples. I'm going to post this as an example. I'm going to complete this exercise off camera. And I'm going to post these documents so that you can look at them and see how I do that with the rest of these for context clues and internal clues. And for some, there might not be any internal clues. And some context clues might require more explanation or less. And that's fine. But I'm going to post an example for you to look at as you're working. A very good example, what we call an exemplar. And so as you move forward to work on the collaborative exercise, which means you can work, or you will work with other people to fill out the next one, I want you to look back at this as a reference to see how to do it right. And of course, if you have any questions at all, please raise your hand and ask me for help.